Drew and Megan, thank you so much for taking the time. Watched the film yesterday and really enjoyed it. It kind of brought me back to my, whales were always my animal growing up. So watching this and learning a little bit more about them was so fascinating to me, as well as kind of marking some places down that I think I want to travel to.
Yeah, right. I know it's like it's a shame that I didn't get to go. I'm always bummed out that I'm not in those boats.
I was actually going to ask about that because the images are just stunning. But we'll get to that. Let's start off with just Drew. I guess what drew you to the topic?
Yeah, it's as simple as I fell in love with the science first. I heard a couple radio stories about dolphin researchers, and something really stuck to me about that. And I started reading everything I get my hands on, journals, articles, books, and it started painting this picture. I mean, the collective picture it's painted with, reading about cognition, communication, culture, evolution. It's like more interesting than any science fiction book or movie I've ever seen. And I was thinking, oh, well, if I'm having this much of a reaction from just reading about the work, surely the people who go out to sea for long periods of time to do the work, it must be a profound and emotional experience for them. So I started hanging out with whale scientists at conferences, and they were super generous and invited me on their boats and let me see what it's actually like. And eventually I met Michelle and Ellen, and it became really clear that they were going to be the two main scientists of the film, and that their work complemented each other really well, but also who they are, their personal stories, that they complemented each other pretty well as well.
Sure. How long were you there filming?
I was in Alaska twice for this film. Once for Michelle's sort of pilot study that was a little under 2 weeks. And then when we went back, I was there for, I can't remember if it was like 34 or 35 days, but it was a stretch of like about a month with Michelle in Alaska. And then I flew directly to French Polynesia with Ellen for a few more weeks. So all in all, I think I was away from home for a little bit less than 2 months. Yeah.
Can you talk about the how of filming? I mean, these aren't necessarily large vessels that you were on, and certainly not the most welcoming terrain.
It was really hard. With Megan's incredible logistical skills and producing brilliance, I was somehow able to put like hundreds of pounds of camera gear and solar panels and electric generators on a seaplane.
We didn't have to scale up. We had to go from one smaller size seaplane to a larger size seaplane.
Yeah, when we actually put it on the scale, they were like, you're going to need a bigger plane. And getting out there and in a very wet and unpredictable environment. And I'm a one person shooter on these things for a lot of different reasons, but sometimes out of necessity in some ways. So I was bringing a ton of gear. So I'm filming and also doing like data downloading all the data to hard drives and like making sure the batteries are recharged, while also trying to like eat and enjoy their company as well. For me as a filmmaker, it's really important to put the camera down too, and and have a relationship with them outside of just the movie. So all of that was really hard to juggle. And then technically speaking, on the boat, it's like, yeah, it's a 16 with Michelle, it's a 16-foot inflatable. For Ellen, it's not much bigger than that. And you just have to be out of the way, but you also have to be able to capture their process. And they were super generous, but and then not getting seasick is really important too, and actually pretty difficult. But
been successful with that.
Yeah, it's tough. So yeah, it was a really there were a lot of parameters, but like honestly, like art does well with parameters and limits. And once you know what you can and can't do, it kind of just, there's only one thing you can do, which is sit tight on a boat and point the camera in the right direction at the right time as best as you can.
That makes a lot of sense. I think for both of you, one of my questions would be, nothing's guaranteed when it comes to the work that you were doing and the success of the work being done by these two individuals you were following. And actually encountering whales. I mean, I think there was discussion in the film of, for this late in the season, seeing as little number of whales at that time was really surprising. What kind of challenge is that for the two of you as filmmakers? And was there a plan B if you couldn't get the footage or the full story that you were intending to tell?
Well,
go ahead, me.
when we pitched it and we kind of conceived the story, we weren't there. I mean, we want to give the audience the foundation to understand what, or at least a piece of what Ellen and Michelle understand about whales, so that they can really experience kind of the groundbreaking amazingness of what Ellen and Michelle are doing. But it's really about following them, and it's about their journey. And so, while we're very fortunate in the things that we were able to actually capture in the moment, we always knew like it's going to be the journey of a field season. And we've both like gone on shoots, and there's so much similarity between like going into production and doing field research, that we sort of knew naturally there is, there's drama and challenges, and there's the arc of your experience of that. And so we always knew that, number one, the way that they thought about and talked about their research and their work was always going to be in the film, and we would have that as like great bedrock for the audience to follow and go along with. But also too, that we just innately thought that there would be a real experience in the field season for the audience, whatever the outcome was of the research. And I think we just got a little bit lucky with the outcome, but we were really there to just follow Michelle and Ellen's experiences. And that
also,
was
sorry, go ahead, Drew.
And also, we're old. I guess it's old school. I don't know. I think we're kind of old school in the sense that we're not going there to capture what we want to happen. We're there to, bear witness and see what's going to happen and be open to things happening unexpectedly. And those are the gems of documentary. So it didn't really, everything was relevant. Anything could have happened and would have happened, and it all would have been relevant, and it all would have, so yeah.
I think that's one of the stunning realizations watching a film like this, is that this, we've seen a great deal of time during the film pass, but success can come and go for these researchers, and the commitment to the work is really, I think, what's most impressive. It's wild to me, the investment that these individuals make. And, at one point it's mentioned that this is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. And even just thinking about that is kind of wild. Do you ever think you'd dive back into kind of figuring out other pieces of the puzzle or following other pieces of the puzzle?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Michelle and Ellen are also my friends, so I'm hoping that years from now they'll still pick up the call and tell me about all the cool things that they're learning. But in terms of the larger themes of this film and the takeaways of it, I think I'll be exploring them for the rest of my career.
And also too, like any time spent with Ellen and Michelle, period, is like the best time ever. I think it's another sort of like, we got really lucky with that secret sauce with, the relationship that Drew built. And I think that's, totally one of the things that shines on screen. But, as Drew said, like even 6 weeks later, a month later, you talk to them on the phone and like you hear like a little tidbit of something, you're like, that, oh my God, like it's still mind blowing. And so right. Revisit it literally anytime.
I know. Michelle, we were having like coffee this morning. I mean, literally like every day, it's like we were having coffee this morning and she said like something that was like revelatory and amazing. And yeah, it's pretty
be the annoying person along with them, because I felt like every little detail that was presented or anything that they said, I would want to dive into and, have to understand it a little bit better, because it's such a fascinating field. And especially given like the how long these animals have been around and how much there is that we still need to understand is just fascinating. With these filmmakers, and I'm glad to hear that you guys are still in contact and you're still friends, is there anything that you learned from them that has really stuck with you?
Wow. It's hard to find a starting point, honestly, for like that piece of it. And it's like Drew said, we were just talking about this with Michelle last night. Like, it's like, we are trying to capture their experience, but her experience is about understanding what the natural world is saying to itself, right? And it's like, we want to bear witness to that conversation, but it's like inserting ourselves in that conversation really isn't the object, right? The object is really for like that conversation to be happening and for us to know as much about it as possible and to let it play out in its most natural way possible. And that's, I mean, it's the tip of the iceberg. I've learned like literally every time I talk to them, there's like something new and amazing and groundbreaking that yeah, it's like, it's sort of like mind blowing kind of every moment with them.
One of the things that was like a real, like really stands out, now that I've had some time to think about it, that really stands out to me is with both of them, it was the idea that they didn't want the film to necessarily be about, this intrepid discovery that's happening. They wanted it to be about what we're actually learning about the whales. You know, they didn't want to be these like heroes that go out there and like, oh, look at this discovery and no one ever figured this out before. They wanted to be like, no, 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 look at this new knowledge we have. And what questions now do we have as a result of it? What are we learning about ourselves as a result of it? And that kind of humility I was not expecting, because you usually see scientists, yeah, you know, the intrepid scientist that goes out there in the boat and this and that, and they are a lot there. I mean, they're just as badass as any of those images, and they could be that if they wanted to, but they really, really passionately believe that this is not about us. This is about learning about everything around us.
Yeah. That's great. And there is a line at one point, and forgive me, I forget who said it, but it was about wanting to capture the beauty of the animals for future generations. And that really hit me as well, just given larger context of, you know, climate change and all the challenges of the world. So that was really wild to hear.
Yeah.
My last question, getting back to the locations, is just Alaska and French Polynesia. Those images were stunning. The footage is stunning. What was your favorite climate, or I guess your favorite location to shoot in through? And do you have one? You know, you maybe both.
Well, I don't, you know, it's like I have a soft spot for Alaska. I like colder climates anyway, personally, but there is a magic to Alaska, which is that it is so quiet. When you go to French Polynesia, as soon as you get out of the reef, which is where the whales primarily are, you're in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and it goes deep really fast, and those waters are huge. And it was hard to hear. It was hard to hear a whale breathe like 30 feet away. But in Alaska, you can hear whales breathe from up to 10 miles away.
Oh, wow.
Like, it's so quiet. And so it's a mirror pond out there. Not always, but when we were there for a lot of the time. And that experience was totally transformative to me. It was to hear the sounds of whales breathing in every direction at almost all times. And you can't even see the breath anymore because it was 10 miles away. So it came and went by the time you hear it. It sounds like the world is breathing. It's one of the most extraordinary experiences.
It sounds like it was a great experience, and it definitely translates to the film, which I think is truly just a remarkable piece of insight into the work being done. So I thank you both, not only for the film, but for the time today.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the questions, and I'm so glad you liked the film. Thank you so much.
Thank you both. Take care.
Thank you, you too.